There's the cover. Can he do it? Kick out at 2.
You are wrestling fans, and we are the degenerates who haven't done this in a while. This is kicking at it too. Sorry about the delay. Life in the way, and people getting sick. Yeah, so I mean, it's been
off, so I apologize in advance.
So we're going to streamline through WWE programming today, and then over the weekend we will record and streamline through AEW, and hopefully be back on track after that. But as it stands right now, this is what in theory. So we are just going to do WWE stuff right now. So little WWE logo up there, just say we're doing WWE. There we go.
Nice.
What we're going to do this, we're going to streamline through it. We're going to talk about the results, and then anything on the show that really kind of came out. Now, the good thing about doing that format with these shows is these weren't very big shows.
We're not. They were big moments.
Yes.
But the shows themselves were just kind of
Yeah, I mean we're getting a pay-per-view here in another 2 weeks, I think.
2 weeks. Oh well, it'd be a week from this Saturday.
Yeah, a week from this Saturday.
It changed.
And so we're rushing towards that, trying to get people that are going to be in the chamber matches. So that's what everything's kind of tied up in right now. And then we're capping off other stories.
Those chamber matches are both looking solid.
They absolutely are. So we're going to go ahead and start with SmackDown. This is SmackDown on February 3rd. It was in Greenville, South Carolina. We were seeing the blowback from Royal Rumble and everything that happened there. Just to say again how amazing that story is right now.
It still is.
Yeah. And now, because of what happened on Raw, we're kind of looping in Cody into the story, kind of, but we'll get to that in due time.
Yeah.
So just kind of
go ahead. I have thoughts on that.
We will definitely, like, that's going to be the bulk probably of what we talk about, because that's the biggest story that's came out of both of these days. So just kind of a recap. So the undisputed heavyweight champion Roman Reigns beat Kevin Owens and ended up having a beat down for Sami Zayn because Sami Zayn hit him in the back with a chair, very reminiscent of the Shield situation. Jay has not been seen since. He rolled out the ring, walked away. He walked away. The only thing we've heard from him is he had a picture of the road that he posted on Twitter that just said, "I'm gone." I'm out. Yeah, I'm out. And then posted another one, I think it was the next day, that just said he's driving. Because they were like, "Where's Jay? Where's your brother? Where's Jay?"
I was driving. That's nice.
But we did also find out on that night that Reigns is going to defend his title against Cody Rhodes. We did actually also get it signified as well that it wasn't just going to be for one of the titles, because a lot of question of, was it just going to be for one of the titles? Was it going to be for the whole undisputed title? And he said specifically he's going for the whole undisputed title.
Right.
We also find out Rhea Ripley is going to be facing SmackDown.
Right. Sure. That was the Monday. That was the show that we were at here in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Anyway, so live coverage and transcripts from this come from F4W Online. Basically the Wrestling Observer, his recap notes. So no speculation in here, just recaps. So I'm okay reading it. We start off the night with a video recap of the Bloodline Sami Zayn situation from the Royal Rumble. Kayla Braxton was standing in the parking lot when the Bloodline arrived. They arrived without Jay. She asked about Jay, but they ignored her, and Paul Heyman approached, had no comment regarding the Jay status in the Bloodline. We led right into a SmackDown Tag Team #1 Contender Tournament Finals. It was Braun Strowman and Ricochet. No surprise here. They defeated Imperium with Gunther.
Makes no sense.
It does not make any sense. But however,
Imperium is a real tag team, and you're going to put these two guys you threw together. I don't understand this.
I mean, Strowman won with a third grader or whatever he was. So
An 8-year-old.
way
7 or 8-year-old. I don't remember how that kid was, but it was like one of the ref's kids too.
Yep.
It's like John Cone's kid.
I
know. Imperium is an amazing tag team.
They are. They're an amazing tag team. I firmly agree they should have won this match. I think them versus the Usos would be fine because you still have the Jay and Jimmy thing going on.
And even if you
no one cares whose heels or faces right now.
Even if you took one set of titles off the Usos, it's not going to change anything.
Right.
They're still the Usos. They're still the champs. It doesn't break their reign.
Well, and I think this is the perfect opportunity. And we'll go ahead and throw in some speculation about this since we know that's what the match is going to be. Jay doesn't show up. They don't let Solo substitute, so Jimmy has to face it alone. Or Jay shows up and leaves Jimmy high and dry. Jimmy's getting beat down and Jay bounces.
That, or I have a feeling what's more likely is Jay shows up and says, "These are my titles too, and I'm just here for this. I'm not here for you or Roman or anyone else." Because my speculation is that Jay's going to get involved in the match at the Chamber.
You very well could. I mean, where they're going to go with that, I am done saying this is where they're going to go because I don't know. We could end up with Sammy versus Cody for all I know at WrestleMania. I don't know. At this moment, I don't know what we're doing.
At this moment on Friday, we didn't. After Monday, we're pretty set on. I hate it, but we're pretty set on how that's going to go.
Yeah. But he did tease that little statement in there too. So who knows?
All right. I gotta blow my nose. Keep going.
Okay. So Kayla Braxton spoke with SmackDown Women's Champion Charlotte Flair. Flair's ready to take on Rhea Ripley tonight. Flair has to focus on Sonya Deville though. Deville interrupted and promised to defeat Flair for the title. Then we see. So this was a fun little segment. We see Rey Mysterio and the New Day and the Judgment Day are at a NASCAR event, and in a situation where Ray and Dominic are going to race each other. So they race each other. Ray won. To me, the highlight of this was Ray saying that what was it? It was Dom's toughness is about as fake as the teardrop tattoo he's got on his face. I was good with that. Get the SmackDown Women's title match. SmackDown Women's Champion Charlotte Flair defeated Sonya Deville. Sonya just can't catch a break. They keep just putting her in there with Flair, and of course Flair's going to win. Towards the end of the match, Flair hit a forward flip into a clothesline for a near fall. Deville tried fighting back, but Flair locked in the figure 8 to win. I do got to say that Flair's matches lately I have really enjoyed. You can definitely see a lot of the work she's been putting in with training with Andrade, because she's been trying to put in a lot of more athleticism and more almost lucha libre, for lack of a better term, because she's not going full on lucha, but some of the things she's doing is very floppy, flippy stuff.
I agree, and I agree with you about Sonya. That poor girl cannot catch a break.
Yeah.
I think the funny thing had NXT not gone the way it had, putting Sonya back there with Toxic Attraction would have worked.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Especially because we got a little teaser of that when Sonya showed up because Mandy had lost her brother, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And so she was off for a couple of days, and Sonya stepped in to help. And yeah, I like the idea of the strong managerial woman being in charge of Toxic Attraction. It worked.
Would have been perfect.
So
it would have, had they done this almost DX style the next week after Mandy left, would have been perfect.
Yep. Have Toxic Attraction in the ring. They called a friend.
Yeah, and
So,
it's Sonya.
yep, that wouldn't have been a bad idea at all. We gotta. Well, actually, before I move on, you were away from the camera when I was talking about it. Did you see the NASCAR segment? What did you think
Yes,
about it?
that shit was hilarious. It was stupid, but it was so funny.
Yeah,
And having the New Day involved in anything makes it better because of Kofi,
Kofi.
and Woods' reactions. Their reactions, facial expressions, behaviors just makes anything so much better.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I love watching the guys. And when I found out that they were going to be on the bump this last episode, I normally just watch the clips of the bump
Right.
of like little highlights of what they talked about. I'm actually going to go back and watch the episode because it's
Well, and
Kofi, it's Biggie, and or not Kofi,
oh, it's all
excuse me,
three of them.
it's Woods, Biggie, and Tyler Breeze. Just seeing those three guys together, like I want to watch that whole show.
But the teardrop line was brilliant.
But
Yeah, the teardrop line that that was so because everybody has made fun of Dom online for that teardrop. So it's just that was such as much as I don't like Ray, that was such a good line for him.
it was nice to do, and it's nice to see that we're finally kind of we're getting to the point. I don't know why we separated the two in the first place. Like we need to finish the storyline and get it
Well,
done.
I think they're going to finish it at Mania, and I honestly won't be surprised if it's Ray's last match.
Yeah,
I won't be surprised if it comes down to Dom saying, "If I win, your career is over." Because how much more heel heat would Dom get
yeah.
if he shelves Ray?
The only other turnout that I would kind of like to see for that is if we slowly start to see Judgment Day taking it too far,
Yeah,
and Dom, I mean, almost kind of like we saw with the Jay and Sammy situation.
yeah.
Like they start taking it too far, and he's like, "Hey, like I get it. He's a piece of shit dad, but
I
come
don't
on."
disagree, but I think to do it right now, wash, rinse, repeat. It is my concern.
Yeah, no, I
If they
I, I
would
agree. I'm just saying, like,
now, if
because the
six
whole
months or a year from now, it's still a thing. Okay, I get that,
yeah,
but right now, no, because it's going to be like, oh, it's the Bloodline
yeah.
2.1.6 because they're not good enough to be 2.0.
Um, but I say that because I know like Ray has said in interviews that like his biggest thing is he wants to be able to pass on the Mysterio name and the mask and all that to Dom. And so like to
And I
me
get that.
that's like if that's
Here's
his
the
last match, then
I understand that. My problem with that is Dom doesn't need it.
no.
He has that dude is getting nuclear heat. And so trying to put him in a mask or make it, they still call him Dominic Mysterio. Like, literally, it needs to be if I beat you, you
You're
give me
done.
your mask and you retire.
Yeah. I gotcha.
And that way, Ray's getting what he wants and giving Dom passing the mask on. Dom starts wearing it like a trophy.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Or he does something where he cuts it up and has it made into a necklace or something, which just makes it that much better.
Put it on his flannel that he has only the top
There
button
you go.
because that's the way you wear
There you
it.
go. But
Um,
yeah, just go ahead.
well, I was just going to move on to the next segment. So we end up in the Bloodline locker room. Roman Reigns is kind of staring off in the distance. Solo is staring off into the distance. Jimmy's just kind of there. And you could tell like it's tense in the room. Like nobody is
It's
wanting
a,
to say
it was
anything. Nobody wants to do
it was
anything.
uncomfortable in the room,
Um,
and we weren't even in the room.
so then Roman like starts talking. He goes, "Hey, I need to know if you talked to Jay." And Jimmy goes, "No, I didn't talk to him." Um, and then like he gets a little more stern with it, and he's like, I'm gonna ask you one more time. Have you talked to your brother?" And then
Did you hear
Jimmy,
what Jimmy said?
yeah, Jimmy snacks back, and he's like, "I'm gonna tell you again." No,
What he No, that's not what he
is that
said.
not what he said?
What he said was, "I haven't heard from him."
Oh, okay, yeah,
That's a very different statement than "I haven't talked to him."
yeah,
So I'm wondering if it's not just going to be Jay that is like, I'm done dealing with this, or if Jay gets in Jimmy's head and they both walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way he phrased that, I noticed that I was like,
Fair enough.
he didn't just say, I haven't talked to him, because you haven't talked to him, you haven't talked to him. He said, I haven't heard from him. That's a very open-ended statement.
It is, and maybe that's. I mean, it's kind of to me up to interpretation because, like, to me, I was looking at it more as the tone because the
The
tone
tone was there
was,
too.
"Listen, motherfucker, I told you, I haven't heard from him." So Reigns was furious that Jay's not around and he wasn't after the ending at SmackDown. With Reigns getting one over on Sammy, that leads us to at Raw. So with Raw, we are from Orlando, Florida. So we're bringing it back to NXT's hometown. The big thing about this one is we're finally getting that cage match between Becky and Bayley, which that segment turned out well. But we kicked the show off, though, with Edge and Beth Phoenix, which Edge being Edge slapping his wife's ass as he's doing his entrance. One of my favorite memes I think I have seen this week. There was a meme of it's a picture of them standing together, and you've got Beth that's looking at him very seriously, and he's looking at her kind of crazily. And it just over Beth's head, it says, the moment that you realize that he said that your husband said, we need to take this entrance super seriously and not play slap ass. And then he played slap ass anyway.
That's funny.
That was from Beth herself. And that's
nice. That's nice.
I still don't blame. So Edge was happy to be back. He says, at this point, I'm the king of comebacks, which he is, constantly coming back, and we don't care. So Edge admitted that Judgment Day was his... Yes, absolutely
amazing. Both of them do, but she, that woman is so pretty.
Well, you know, Rhea's mommy, but Beth is mother.
Right.
Edge admits that Judgment Day was his fault, but it was his idea. He wanted to open up a spotlight to young talent that needed the extra rub and that needed the extra push. Finn Balor, he believes that was a success, though, because Finn Balor is at a level that he's never seen him at before. Damien's a workhorse. Rhea Ripley outlasted everyone in the Royal Rumble, and Dom was there too, which was a great touch.
Line. That was such a great line.
Edge felt helpless when Ripley was holding a chair to Beth Phoenix. Never felt helpless. Nothing he could do to stop what was going on, but now nothing is going to stop him to get his pound of flesh. Phoenix then wanted to cut to the chase and said she just wanted to call out Judgment Day. Balor, Priest, and Dominic all entered. Balor told Edge it might be time for him to say, I quit for good, that he should be done now. Priest threatened them with harm as well. Priest threatened them worse before saying he would beat Angelo Dawkins, become the U.S. champion in the Elimination Chamber. He flubbed up his line a little bit, but I think he recovered well. He was like, win money in the and then he looked at Finn. He was like, see, he's got me all frustrated. I can't think straight. Great way to cover that.
Is really good on a mic. I think he's better than he gets a lot of credit for.
Yeah, I think he's good. I mean, they keep sticking him with people, though, that are really great at promos, and so he gets just kind of like the hype man lines. And
yeah,
they need to let him just kind of go a little bit, too. And just every once in a while, just give him the mic. Maybe have it a moment where Finn's not out there and it's just him and Dom.
Let him carry it.
Edge thought it was ironic that Priest didn't want to be by his side, but then he followed Balor like a little labradoodle.
It was a great line too.
Edge threatened to drop them faster than Dom dropped his pants in prison. Edge couldn't wait to see Ray come back and kick Dom's teeth down his throat. A lot of great lines.
Edge is so good on him. I always when we're talking about people on the microphone, I always forget about Edge, but he's so good.
He is. Phoenix said that she came here for Rhea Ripley, but Dom said Rhea's off doing a promotional work for WrestleMania. Phoenix thought that was very convenient, considering she speared Ripley out of her boots last week. That looks sick. Since Ripley wasn't there, though, Phoenix challenged them to a tag match at Elimination Chamber. Herself and Edge versus Ripley and Balor. Balor was amused by the challenge and accepted. Judgment Day went to attack, but Angelo Dawkins then ran out because that's the next match we were up. Dom tried backing away, but then Montez Ford comes out, which is so entertaining because he's like doing that little shuffle walk all the way down to get to right behind him. Throws him back into the ring where Phoenix gave him a glam slam. And this is one of those moments like Dom gets a lot of flack.
Yes.
But he's so good sometimes because she gets him up in that glam slam, and just before she drops him, he just yells, "Mommy!" Whack! Perfect timing.
Which is so good.
Yeah.
Like, he has just nuclear heat all the time. Like, people hate this kid. Yeah. But you're right. Little things like that are seriously underrated.
We come back from break, and we found out that Adam Pearce had tossed everybody else out from ringside. That's why we have a clear ring, and it's just Priest and Angelo Dawkins. Damian Priest ends up defeating Angelo Dawkins. I don't disagree with that. I think between the two, it makes more sense for Priest to have the win.
It does. It does.
So he qualifies for the Chamber. Austin Theory arrived to the building earlier in the day. We see him coming in a black Lamborghini convertible. They're playing up he's big man on campus now. You find out that Bad Bunny won a Grammy. He got a little congratulations for it, which is awesome. Adam Pearce officially welcomed Maxine Dupree and the Maximum Male Bottles to Raw with new contracts. Apparently, we're going to see some more of them. I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with that merely because of the setup with Otis.
See, I'm fine with it just like, to me, Brandon, Mace, whatever you want to call him. He is so entertaining, and just one little line popped me so hard because he's giving them their contracts, trying to tell them welcome, and then Chelsea's back behind him again asking for the manager. He looks at them and he goes, "I am so sorry. I need to go handle this. Please excuse me." And Mace looks at him and goes, "You're excused," and then walked away. Like, just that little line.
I definitely think them doing this gimmick has given both Mace and Mansoor a chance to kind of show themselves. It's silly and it's not taken seriously at all, but it's really given them a chance to show some of their personality.
So Chelsea Green's behind him. He says, "Are you the manager?" And he says, "Yes, I'm the manager. We just went through this last week."
Chelsea is so good.
She said she wanted a match tonight because she believes she should be in the chamber, so she should get a qualifying match. Or maybe she should call Pierce's manager. That would be bad news for him. She said, "Hey, thanks, bye," and left. Which I guess is kind of her new thing because, like, at the end of it, like, "Hey, thanks, bye."
Yeah, I wasn't sure how I'd feel about Chelsea coming back, but she's pretty entertaining.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I'm sure people are going to give flack. I've tried to steer clear of a lot of Twitter stuff lately, just because I don't want to get sucked into it. The only Twitter I'm looking at right now is 2K23 because I'm so excited. I've already gotten the icon level package of it, which is the highest of it.
Nice.
I get it on the 14th because of that, March 14th. So on that day, I will probably be dead to the world. Just staring at my.
That's a Tuesday. You can't. We have to record Raw that day.
Oh, we'll still record. I may be playing John Cena while I'm recording.
Okay, you go ahead and read what happened.
However, I'm going to say I do plan on, when I have time, I'm going to set up a stream some of the 2K23 stuff.
Nice. Nice.
As I figure out more how to do that, I will boot up my GM, and maybe you and I can go at my GM a little bit.
If you do that, pull it up, and I'm gonna commentate your games.
Okay, I'm perfectly fine with that. I will build myself in the game.
That
You
shit
can
would be
commentate
so
my matches.
That would be so funny.
So then we get Dexter Loomis with Johnny Gargano defeating Baron Corbin. This was merely just set up to get Corbin defeated, because we end up backstage later, and JBL is standing back there, and Corbin's like, hey, where we're going to go for dinner, where we're going to go for drinks. And JBL goes, there is no we. You're trash. I'm a needle mover. I'm a crowd pleaser. The sound
JBL,
you hear when you go out there are the millions of TVs turning off the TV.
The last needle JBL moved was somebody's diabetic needle. Okay, so stop it.
I don't disagree. However, so great funny lines. Like I said, the one of like, what you hear when you walk out there is millions of people turning the channel. He says, hey, I'll get better. I'll be better. I'm sorry. He looks at him and goes, the new wrestling god can't polish a turd, and then walked away.
It's really sad that they've done these things, and even JBL could not get Baron Corbin over.
Yep.
Just let him go back to being the lone wolf. The sad part is, I think fans will appreciate that more than anything.
At this point, I'd be fine with him putting on that like Red Robin outfit again, or Applebee's or whatever it was. Like, just I'm done with you, boy.
He's another one that I think would benefit from a good NXT run.
Oh yeah, if he would go back to NXT, take him off TV for a couple months, let us forget about him. Then he shows up in NXT with that old Baron Corbin music.
And the lone wolf. Here's what I would do if I was doing it. I would have Grayson Waller take the title off of Braun, so you can bring Braun up to the main roster. You take Baron off TV for a few months. You have Waller run through Apollo or somebody that nobody cares about. And he's like, he goes to Shawn Michaels. He's like, are you going to give me any kind of a challenge? Like, are you going to give me a challenge? Because this is too easy.
Yeah.
And Shawn's like, you know what? I have just the guy for you. And it's Baron Corbin. And he doesn't come out to wrestling. He just comes out and he beats the brakes off of that kid. Yep. And then he's like, guess what? I'm your next challenger. And you put the title on Baron Corbin, even if it doesn't have to be a long run.
No.
A good 6 month run.
Well, however, though, like, so first of all, like in today's realm, I mean, aside from the Usos and Roman, because that's a whole different level thing. Like 6 months is a pretty good long run, and I'm okay with him running NXT for 6 months. I'm okay with that. And
then bring him back, like do it. I would do it so that his return to the main roster ties into Survivor Series, and he leads an NXT team into Survivor Series. They win, or if they lose, he's like, I don't want any part of this brand. I'm done with y'all. And you bring him back to the main roster.
Yep, definitely. I like it. Then we get a Brock Lesnar Bobby Lashley segment. The only thing I can really say about this is, first of all, it was he's talking about how he can't get Bobby Lashley off his mind. So he's talking about all these things, like every time I sit down to eat, every time I sit down to drink, every time I go to bed with my wife. And then he stops for a second, looks around, he goes, about 4 or 5 hours later, I can't get Bobby Lashley off. I'm like, okay, all right, that was funny. Good job. So, but Lashley comes out. To me, the point of this episode is for us to start thinking about maybe he's finally decided he's going to go back to MVP, because first of all, he comes out and it's the first time in a long time he's been dressed to the nines. Got the sunglasses back on. And he says, "All right, well, um, I'm willing to go over this contract, but first I'm going to have my accountant look at it. I'm going to have my
lawyer.
manager."
And then he said my manager would look at it, and I was
Yeah.
like, okay.
So
I
I
definitely
think I think that's really all the segment was to do, is start planting those seeds again, and then later we
Well,
get a Shelton Cedric match.
right. And there was a segment earlier, and I don't remember what segment it was, but you saw MVP talking to Shelton and Cedric too.
It was the JBL Baron Corbin segment.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah. So no, I definitely think, and it putting Bobby back with the Hurt Business for Brock makes a lot of sense.
So that segment goes off. Obviously, like we're at a situation where they're about to go to blows. Lashley put his finger in Lashley's face, so Lesnar then gave him an F5. The chants at that point from the crowd are very much behind Lesnar, saying "Do it one more time." So Lesnar's an attraction at this point. Like
He is.
he's going to get that reaction no matter who he's standing there against. I don't like the idea of the Hurt Business coming back as bad again, but is what it is if you're going to put him against Lashley.
Yeah.
We end up backstage, and this is the segment you and I were talking about earlier off camera. So Gargano and Loomis approached Candice LeRae. She's kind of psyching herself up for tonight's match to possibly get into the chamber. Loomis presented her with a drawing of LeRae and Gargano with their dogs. So it's like the whole family. LeRae really liked it, but there was a strange woman drawn in the background of the drawing, and she goes, "But who's this?" And then at that point, everybody kind of turns, and you see Nikki in the background of the shot. And then she goes, "Nikki?" She just giggles like a little gremlin and runs off. So
I love Nikki.
Yeah. Gargano and LeRae were really perplexed. Loomis, of course, just stood there silently. Elimination Chamber Fatal 4-Way match. This match was amazing. I loved every bit of it. First of all, Carmella looks amazing. She shouted out her outfit, that she modeled it after Lita.
Nice.
So
that's very nice.
Kind of her new look now. She's going to do like the baggy jeans with the little bit of thongs sticking out up top, which is perfectly fine. I'm glad to see her back to her fabulous music. I'm glad to see her back moonwalking. Like, bring back your character, because this whole like pretty girl with the mask on, all that stuff. Like none of that seemed to ring with her. Just be yourself.
This seems much more in line with who she is.
So one of the best spots in this, in my opinion, is there was a spot where all three of the other girls were sitting together on the mat in the middle of the ring, and Piper did a cross body to all three of them at the same time. Just pancaked all three. It was awesome. Amazing spot. This ends up being won by Carmella, which to me was a bit of a surprise. I'm glad she's in it. I kind of expected Piper to run away with this.
With them just bringing Piper back and getting away from the Dewdrop, I'm not surprised. I think they're going to spend a little time building her. I definitely think her and Bianca would be a really good match when it happens. But I think they need to build Piper up a little bit as more of a heavy hitter rather than the Dewdrop gimmick.
Yeah. Well, and that to me though, that's kind of why I was surprised, because to me,
yeah,
if you're gonna get that stink off of her of Dewdrop,
right,
putting her in there and just having her plow through a bunch of girls in an elimination chamber, I'll forget about Dewdrop really quick.
This is one of those. Excuse me. This is one of those that we could put Dewdrop and Nikki together and go after the tag titles, and it makes sense because they have a past. I don't feel like it's just a thrown together team because they've teamed before. And I feel like putting the tag titles on them, I think, would do wonders for both of them.
Yeah. which I think we might be kind of teasing that because the next segment we're backstage, and we have LeRae back there talking or recovering, excuse me, after the match. Niven went back there and shoved LeRae and was basically warning her, saying like, "You cost me my chance at the title. I'm not going to forget this." Yim then separated them, told Niven to back off. So we're ending up with LeRae and Yim against Niven. Cross just kind of fits perfectly into that because Cross is doing the thing with LeRae. So we'll see if that's where it goes. Then we end up with Shelton Benjamin, Cedric Alexander defeating Alpha Academy. First of all, great match. I love seeing Shelton and Gable together. I love seeing that because, first of all, they teamed together for that long while. They had great chemistry that way. They're both great wrestlers, both amateur and professional. So,
and they're both amazing athletes.
Yeah, it was definitely good to see as far as the match is concerned. And plus, you got Otis. Otis is always fun to watch in the ring.
And Cedric is just amazing. That lumbar check is so pretty.
Yeah. And so, surprisingly enough, MVP shows up with them to come down to the ring. So that's already
they're putting the Hurt Business back together.
Absolutely. Well, and off camera and out of character, Bobby has said that since they've split up. It said, I want a story that puts us back together.
But it doesn't make sense for him to just run into it right now.
Right. So we end up in a situation when Benjamin hit Otis with knee strikes before hitting him with an impressive Samoan drop. So Shelton getting Otis up for a Samoan drop is amazing. However, that dude is stacked. So I'm not surprised he had the strength and the momentum to get.
Yes. Shelton's stacked, and he's another one. I feel like he's very underutilized and underrated.
Yeah. To me, so the only Shelton always fit in the same category to me as Cesaro, where like he has everything except for the mic. Like if he just had someone to talk for him, he'd be world champion in a hot minute. But
I agree.
Put him on a mic and I'm asleep.
He's a charisma vacuum.
Yep. He's Lance Storm before he started dancing with cheese on.
From Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Shout out to Lance Storm.
120 kilos.
Yeah.
So at that point, though, Alexander dodged Gable's moonsault attempt and then hit him with a lumbar check, pinfall victory. It's really fun that they got it. Really glad they got it. I think very much so. That was a team that they got booked into a corner because they started doing this hothead Cedric gimmick. And then from there, it was just like, all right, well, then everything's going to implode because of that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to. To me, that story writes itself. Keep Cedric being a hothead, but the whole thing is Shelton's been around the block for the last, 20 years. He's the one who gets him focused. That makes perfect sense.
And MVP after Winter makes perfect sense, too.
Absolutely. Kathy Kelly interviewed The Miz, who acted like he was not impressed by Rick Boogs. Then Boogs showed up walking behind him out of Adam Pearce's locker room. Said, "How did you get a meeting with Adam before I did?" And basically just kind of blew that off of like, I was here. That's why.
You're too nice.
Where did you want to go?
Test me. What?
Miz called Pierce an incompetent official for making the match between him and Boogs. Pierce happened to be behind Miz when he was saying that, though, and so he said, "Well, all right, well, let's have a rematch next week then." A little bit of pay for that. After this, Green showed back up in her gear, told Pierce that she was headed to the ring, so he better have an opponent ready for her, or else she'd call his manager. And then she said, "Okay, thanks, bye."
Her facial expression once she's in the ring and the music hits
Oh yeah,
for her opponent, I was like, oh, this bitch about to get worked.
yeah. So she's standing out there, ready for her opponent, and then Asuka's new theme hit, and then she kind of realized the shit she was in at that point.
Corey sold the hell out of this too. He's like, uh-oh, may not be careful what you wish for. Like he was selling Asuka up hard.
I think they played this really well though, because like obviously at this point, um, Chelsea's a comedy gimmick at the moment, and
Well,
that's fine. But you still gave her a little bit of an edge because as her and Oscar are in the ring, the other girls from the Elimination Chamber match start surrounding the ring, which distracts Oscar just long enough for Chelsea to get in some offense. So she beats her down for a couple of minutes,
right.
and then Oscar gets her comeback because at that point Chelsea is bad mouthing each girl around the ring, kind of one at a time. Took her eyes off the ball. Asuka then stands up behind her, great look on her face, and just beats the living tar out of her.
The best part of that was the way that Asuka kind of rose up behind her, and the fear you could see on Chelsea's face when she went, "Ah, fuck!" And that
realize,
oh, that this new character for Asuka is so good.
Yeah. I love it. I still want to go back and watch some Hurricane stuff because I mean it's obvious visually that it's very reminiscent. I want to see if the character itself also is very. But yeah, so Green was too distracted by everyone at ringside. Asuka then killed her with rapid strikes, badass German suplex, kick to the head, and then got her in a submission that ended up looking kind of like a Rings of Saturn. So maybe that's kind of one of her new things. But got the submission win. Had her tied up so much that she couldn't tap out. She literally had to say, "I quit," because there was nowhere for her to tap out.
Which is a nice change.
After the match, Bianca Belair came out, reminded them that she was the champion, and she wished all of them good luck. Huh?
Looking stacked.
Absolutely. There was a couple of layers of cake coming out of that. We get in the third hour, and we end up with the Cody Rhodes segment, which this is all I want to talk about.
If you haven't seen this segment, you need to go back and watch it because it's so well. This is literally two masters of their craft working in unison to build the prettiest cake you have ever seen.
It is. It's a segment that like I never knew I wanted.
And now,
then they just gave it to me anyway.
And now I want them to give it to me repeatedly. Like you could give me one of these a week, and I'd be fine with it.
Yeah. So Rhodes enters the ring, obviously to a big reaction. Everybody loves him. I know there's a lot of fear right now of like fans are going to turn on him because they want Sammy to be against him at WrestleMania. And I don't know. I want to see where we end up in the Elimination Chamber. I have total faith right now in Triple H that somehow we're going to finalize that story. Maybe not finish it, but we're going to be able to move him along without everybody being mad about it. So he says, I am set to match against Roman Reigns for the undisputed title, which led to Chance of Sammy happening at that point. He did say, though, at this point, though, I think maybe I'm set to face Sammy at WrestleMania. Which is
a nice line, and it sounds good.
Well, and it's good because like if that were to happen, I think everybody will be okay with it. If it doesn't happen, I think everybody's going to be okay with it. It's just a nice little like this could happen. Never know.
The moment he said that, I'm good with it. But then the rest of this segment happened.
That's valid. So Rhodes said he respected everyone he's fought against. that he feels that there was an injustice put upon them, and he considered Zayn a friend. Rhodes
Keep
wished
going.
Zayn well and said, "Let the
Keep
best
going.
man
I'll
win."
be right back. Just keep going through the segment because the segment's amazing.
Okay. So Paul Heyman then interrupted, and the crowd loudly sang along with his spiel. Heyman informed Rhodes that the only week as busy as the week leading up to the big event, like the Rumble or WrestleMania, was the week following. So a week after he did it, Heyman congratulated Rhodes on his Rumble win. They shook hands. Cody then said his father and his brother had a nickname for Heyman, but all Cody wanted to call him was Mr. Heyman. Rhodes respected Heyman, and Heyman knew why. Rhodes decided to pull back the curtain a little bit for everybody. He talked about back in 2000. Now, back in the 2000, Rhodes were on very hard times. They were broke. Dusty was doing local car commercials, not for the money, but just so he could keep the car he was driving. The crowd then started chanting for Dusty. A lot of good Dusty chants going at that point. Dusty got a call from Heyman at that point. ECW was in town, and Steve Corino would call him out. Heyman started getting emotional at this point. I do feel like, even though, like, obviously all this is work, I think little things that they were pulling, just because I don't see Heyman telling Cody what he's going to say. I don't see Cody telling Heyman what he's going to say. Probably actually did choke him out. Cody said Heyman offered to pay Dusty and pay him well. Heyman was a man of his word and paid him really well for that particular venture. Thanks to Heyman, Dusty got his confidence back, and Cody could never thank him enough for that. Before Cody returned to WWE, he was somewhere else disrupting the business. Kind of a little wink and a nudge.
It's a nice nod. So, did you see
what?
Paul's face while Cody was telling that story?
Well, yeah, I was mentioning he was obviously getting emotional when it was happening.
He legitimately looked like he was about to lose it.
Yeah. Well, and because I was saying, like, I don't, obviously it's all a work, like that's what we're doing here, but I don't feel like Paul, who he is, and Cody, who he is, I don't think they told each other what they were going to say.
No,
And so I think Cody coming off with this little heel behind the curtain, I think caught him off guard. Very much so, because after he finished this, he said, Cody finished it, and basically just said he wanted to thank him. And then the crowd did a "Thank you, Paul" chant. Heyman took a step back and he chuckled, and he's just, all he could say was "You're good," and you could hear kind of the shake in his voice. And he basically says, like, normally I come out here and I just want to do some business with you, and I want to run some work with you, but like you got me.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was kind of like the Paul Heyman Vince McMahon segment. Hey, do you want to know what I'm going to say? Nope.
And so this next part of the segment, which ends up being the last part, towards the last part of the segment, beautifully done by Paul Heyman, because it's one of those, like, he took that endearing story, he took that love story we just heard, and turned it on its ear, because he says, all right, so we're going to pull back the curtain even more. I was working with Dusty back in NXT, and he was working with all these kids. He's working with Seth Rollins. He's working with Dean Ambrose. He's working with all these people, building them up.
He mentioned Seth, Roman, Becky, Charlotte, and I want to say there was another male performer he mentioned, but I don't remember who it was.
Yeah, but he mentions all these people, how he's always being, a mentor to them, and helping them through, building them up, and you see who they are today. And this was about everything that Cody fought for, leaving through the door and walked back in. This was about main eventing and winning WrestleMania. It would be a storybook ending for Cody, and make sure that he didn't come up short, because Cody was going up against the biggest box office draw at WrestleMania in Roman Reigns. Nobody else knew what it was like being under that spotlight. Nobody prepped Cody for it. He mentioned that down the road at the Performance Center, Dusty trained. So here's the list of people. So Dusty trained and prepped the biggest stars of today: Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch, Bayley, Kevin Owens, and the Tribal Chief himself, Roman Reigns.
That's what it was.
The
Okay.
person Dusty didn't train or prep was Cody. Heyman said maybe Dusty simply wanted Cody to do it on its own. Heyman couldn't stress how much he loved Dusty or how much Dusty loved Cody. He said, this is where it starts kind of breaking down, in our last conversation together, Dusty told Heyman that Cody was his favorite. And camera shoots to Cody. Cody's crying.
Yeah.
Like, you could see the tears. And he lets that get out of there, and he like just waits that beat to let the entire crowd sink into it. And then he goes, but Roman Reigns was the son he always wanted.
I was like, oh my God. Talk about going from I'm going to hug you to stabbing you in the heart.
Yep. Heyman dropped the mic as the crowd just booed him relentlessly. Cody at that point got in Heyman's face, and Heyman's doing his normal, like, I'm just sending a message. I'm just the advocate. I'm just the wise man. I'm sending a message. Cody forced a handshake to Heyman, which Heyman's, like, his screaming when he grabbed his hand was amazing. Cody got real serious and said he was trying to win a wrestling championship. That's all he was trying to do. But someone always has to make it personal. And Heyman, you just made it personal.
Yeah.
Now, Reigns is going to be the one to pay for it. Because I'm going to take both those titles personally. Hits the mic in his chest, walks off.
I'm telling you, this was one of the best mic segments in a minimum 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. It was an amazing segment. The fact that these two guys got to go in there and just riff, and two that are two of the best at it. I don't think anybody can say that anybody's better than Paul. Paul got a room full of ECW wrestlers that, by record, he was only paying like half of them at a pay-per-view. Got them hyped enough to go out there and bloody and scar their bodies. And these men to this day will still follow them.
The ECW Kool-Aid in and of itself was one thing. But they've, to a man, Tommy, Taz, Bubba, Devon, Spike, RVD, they've always talked about these, like, pep talks that Paul would give before these big shows. And they're all the same, basically saying, we would have literally run head first into a wall for Paul Heyman. It didn't matter that he wasn't paying him. It didn't matter any of that stuff, because he was so good at drawing them in and making them feel like the biggest thing in the world. And so it hasn't changed. He's so good on a microphone. It's honestly, if we're doing a Mount Rushmore microphones, personally, Paul Heyman's number one.
Yeah,
he's the George Washington. He is. I just
absolutely.
There's nobody that can get a reaction the way that Paul can.
We get a repeat of the Kofi Kingston video package that we saw back on SmackDown. I'm fine with it being a repeat package. I do kind of like, and maybe we'll see more people covered as we go along.
They'll change it up. I think it's like they'll change it up on Friday, and then on Monday they'll show it again, and then they'll change it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it this way, but I hope it's not like Cartman doing the same token all the time.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Hopefully next week we get like a Bobby Lashley thing, maybe, or a Shelton
Cedric,
thing, or something.
Titus, Bianca. I mean, there's a ton of them.
Yeah. And I'm saying right now, if Woods isn't one of them, I riot, because that man is so successful.
He needs it. They need to split these titles so that we can give Woods a title run.
Absolutely. Speaking of potential title runs of people that we want to see in that scene, the next is the Elimination Chamber qualifier between Montez Ford and Ezekiel, Elias, A-Rod, whoever. So, long story short, we had Austin Theory out here on commentary. We just talked about the best talking segment we've heard in years. This was the shits. I don't know what was off about him today. I don't know what was going on, but like it just nothing was connecting.
He's not bad when he's just talking, but when he's playing off of someone or two other people like Kevin Patrick and Corey Graves, he fumbles the ball every time. He fumbles the ball every time.
But
He can't work with just ad lib. He has to have a scripted type promo.
Yeah. So the ending of this match saw Ford doing a wild flip dive over the ring post to the outside. Then he followed that up with his signature frog splash and got the pinfall win. So cool to see Montez going to be in a singles run of some sort.
I think it's good. I mean, first of all, we're putting somebody that athletic into the chamber. Some crazy shit's going to happen.
Yeah, especially since they raised the cage and
yeah,
made those platforms. Him doing that frog splash to at least one person in that cage is going to look. So that leads us to get a little preview of what's going to happen next week. Next week we get Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley, contract signing. We know what's going to happen. Since Brock Lesnar got the upper hand this week, maybe we see Hurt Business help him get the upper hand next week and get a little bit of a Brock Lesnar beatdown. And that way he can be laying in bed and think about Bobby Lashley. We get Raw versus SmackDown 6 women tag match. It's basically taking all of the members of the Elimination Chamber.
That'll be
got
fun.
Asuka, Nikki, and Carmella versus Raquel, Rodriguez, Liv Morgan, and Natalya. Yeah, that's going to be fun.
I thought those pairings were a little weird.
It's literally because it's Raw versus SmackDown.
Okay. That's true. Okay. That's fair. I was just thinking, I'm like, why is Natalya, shouldn't Natalya and Asuka have switched places?
I think that's kind of what makes it fun, though. Well, and then again, though, you got Liv, who's kind of skirting heelish territory now, too.
Yeah.
Now she's coming out there with the big fur coats, and it's weird. Wrestling's weird.
We find out
what
are we doing.
Yeah, and we found out Miz TV is going to have Seth Rollins on it. Excuse me, sorry, I have to say his legal name, Seth freaking Rollins.
I do want to point out something with Liv, and I don't remember where I saw it. Every time she has those little crazy moments, like backstage, wherever, have you noticed the lights? They're purple. Just like they were when her and Rhea were together before Rhea turned on her and joined the Judgment Day. I'm wondering if Rhea winning the title moves Rhea over to SmackDown. And so they move Liv because she's on Raw, right?
No.
Liv's on SmackDown?
Yeah. Or wait a minute. Yeah.
No, I thought that was on Raw. Who's the Raw team?
The Raw team is Asuka, Nikki, and Carmella.
Oh, okay. I had them backwards.
SmackDown team is Raquel, Liv, and
okay. But yeah, I just wonder if that's
maybe she moves to Raw and
they bring Rhea over, and Rhea's like, I know I'm not going to be here, but I've got somebody that'll fill that role just fine. And it's Liv. With as crazy as they're making her, it makes sense.
Okay, so this plays perfect in my head. So she says that the week before, find out it's Liv. Judgment Day's getting beat down. someone is about to go through a table with Dom on it. Liv comes down and cracks them with a kendo. They fall to the ground. Dom puts them on the table. She does the spot with the table.
Yeah.
I like that. I like it.
I think you can very easily make that work.
And so now we get the steel cage match we've been waiting a few weeks for. We got Becky Lynch versus Bayley. He comes out with Dakota Kai and Io Sky. Dakota Kai's on crutches because of what happened last week. From what I understand, there actually may be a legitimate injury there.
Right.
Nothing really major, but
short term.
Yeah, short term little gig in her leg. Still good for her for what she did then, being injured and all.
Yeah.
The basic back and forth of this is we get up in a situation where, of course, Damage Control's trying to get in on it. We got Io Sky that's climbing up the cage. We got Dakota Kai who's feeding one of the crutches in crack, and then all of a sudden we hear Lita's music.
She looks good too.
Looks amazing. I don't know why this makes any sense, and I don't care, but
it makes sense because I want to say it was Bayley had a picture with Lita. And it was kind of one of those, I met her and decided I wanted to do these things. But Lita's obviously not going to be a fan of the things that Bayley is doing.
Maybe. And if that's how they pull it, that's fine. I mean, aside from that, I don't see any reason why Lita would come out and do this other than, hey, I'm a face and this is what I'm going to do. But I'm good with it because it's going to get me another few matches with Lita, and I'm perfectly fine with that.
I would not be surprised if the next step is Bayley challenging Lita to Mania.
Probably have to go in there and look. Yeah. Seeing her in a match against Io, seeing her in a match against Bayley, I'm perfectly fine with any of that. She's one of the few that can come in and still go.
Well, the last couple times she's been out, she's looked a little heavier. Not badly, just looked a little heavier. And she looked like she was in pretty good shape Monday.
Yeah, she did. She definitely looked like she ready for the comeback.
So yeah, if we get Bayley Lita Mania, I'm here for it.
So her music hits. First thing she does, she climbs part way up the cage, yanks Sky off the top of it. Sky hits hard. Definitely took that landing. And then she starts to go around the side of the cage. Kai took her other crutch and was trying to swipe at her. She grabs the crutch, yanks it out of her hands, hits Io with it as she's trying to attack her again. He goes ass over tea kettle again. Then Lita tries to turn around and go back after Dakota. Passes by the door, and at this point, Bayley's trying to get out. As she passes by the door, she just literally in almost one motion turns, grabs the door, slams it onto Bayley, and turns back around.
It was a nice, fluid little one motion. It was nice.
Ends up hitting her, of course. Then at that point, Bayley then lands into Lynch's arms for a manhandle slam. Got the pinfall win. Lita celebrated with Lynch. Good match. This is the match we should have gotten a couple weeks ago.
I think the addition of Lita makes it a little better. If they know Dakota's going to be down for a minute, then Becky, Lita, Bayley, Io makes more sense.
Yeah, it does.
Because I definitely don't think this is the last we've seen of Becky Bayley.
No, I don't think so either. Before we close out for the day, I do want to just bring up one segment that happened on NXT. I didn't watch all of NXT, but I did see kind of virally how a certain segment has been going around. And considering what it was mimicked from was from our childhood, I definitely want to bring it up.
Yeah.
So
creation of my guy.
that's right. So we ended up in a situation where we found out Bailey was going to show up on NXT and was going to have Toxic Attraction on her talk show, Ding Dong Hello. And so they go in there. Let me actually get to the transcript so I can maybe go into a little more detail with it. As I'm looking for it, we also Dabakato came back.
Who?
General.
He came back at the pay-per-view, Vengeance Day.
Yeah.
And
So he came back
I
and,
was like, is that
turned on
General
Apollo.
Ortiz? Yeah.
So it was a nice little thing. Also, Dragunov came back too.
Ilya Dragunov, nice.
There it is. All right. So Bailey basically cuts to the chase when she gets both Jane and Dolan out there. As they're walking down to the ring, there's obvious dissension between the two of them. They're not really interacting with each other. They're both looking away from each other as they're walking to the ring. Jane snarkily asks Dolan what happened, and Dolan turns the question around on her. And then they just kind of going back and forth of you tell me, you tell me. Jane accuses Dolan of costing her the NXT Women's Championship. Dolan then responds by pointing out that Jane dropped the fall. Thus, Dolan insists that Jane cost Dolan the title. Jane tells Dolan she was not being a team player. They continue to bicker back and forth amongst themselves. Interesting comeback that Jane says when she's talking about Dolan and her gear. She says she looked like a hobo who banged a Chucky doll.
That was brutal.
I think that's something that's going to go in my lexicon of insults, and I'm just going to save that one for some point. Dolan then called it JC Jane position, looking up at the lights. So, and she's on her back a lot, basically. Bailey chimes in, and she's trying to talk sense to Toxic Attraction before they split and break up as a team. She's talking about how they would do as individuals. Dolan hadn't thought about it, and she says, but Dolan said that the sky's the limit for herself. Jane says she's going to go straight to the top as well. Bailey seems very skeptical at the idea of both of them being top contenders. Bailey reminds them it's easier to get up to the top with a ride or die, a friend by their side. Dolan and Jane then appear to make up, and they vow to have one more run together. They are like sisters to each other. Dolan and Jane ponder making another run at the NXT Women's Tag Titles, and then they begin pondering challenging maybe Damage Control, Io Sky and Dakota Kai for the Women's Tag Team Championship. Damage Control is of course aligned with Bailey, so this causes a little weird look inside there. Bailey tries to change the subject by focusing on where the here and now is. Bailey gets Toxic Attraction to hug it out. Nice little part of that of bring him back. Come on, hug it out. And then at this point, it is shot for shot, almost the barbershop scene. The Rockers.
And if you look at JC's outfit, it's very Shawn-esque as well.
Black
because
jacket.
she steps back and super kicks the shit out of Gigi Dolan.
Yep. So before that happens, just to kind of go through the shot for shot of that, you got Bailey, who very reminiscent of the barber back on that original segment, said, okay, now I introduce to you Toxic Attraction. And they raise each other's hands. They're celebrating a little bit. They raise each other's hands again. And then JC just takes that step to the side.
About 1.5 steps. And I'm like, and then, shit, here it comes.
Yep.
Bang.
Super kick of doom at that point. Jane, at this point, obviously has turned on Dolan. After she super kicks her, she throws her into the door of the set, which does not give. And she's leaned up against the door. And I know they're girls. I know. But if Dolan does not give her a receipt for that kick to the face,
yes,
because she kicked the shit out of her.
And Gigi's leaning against that door, and it kind of broke, but it didn't go like it should have, or at least
Yeah.
I feel like it should have. I don't know if she didn't throw her into the right spot. I don't know, but that door didn't go. And then JC steps in and just gives her the biggest boot to the head. And I was just like, oh, Jesus Christ. That was
Uh,
so brutal.
he, took a picture of her face after the fact, and I mean, it is
Really?
all sorts of like. I think it was early enough that she wasn't bruised or anything by it, but like there was some massive like abrasions, rubs, cuts, whatever you want to call it, on that side of her face. Because yeah, that kick to the head was brutal.
I'm
But
going to
so
find this because I want to see this.
but so we end that segment with Dolan curled up in the corner of that doorway.
She posted a picture this morning, and god damn.
Yeah, it's rough looking.
Oh
All this
god.
means to me is if they trust each other that much for this,
Mm-hmm.
these matches are going to be amazing.
Oh, these matches are gonna be banging. It's gonna be
Now,
so good.
you asked me a question before we started recording that I want to say while we're actually recording as well.
Okay.
You asked me, so does that mean that JC's the Shawn in this situation? I personally don't think so. I think, as far as between the two of them, Gigi's always been the more charismatic of them, or flamboyant of them. And I think maybe, though, that's why they gave JC the Shawn spot, because now someone's going to have to hold being sympathetic babyface.
And Gigi will pull it off better.
Yeah, and I think JC can do the heel work.
She has the heel look.
Yeah.
I'm the pretty girl. I'm the better one. Like, she has the heel look down. So, yeah, I definitely think Gigi is definitely much more of a face character. But as much as I don't watch a lot of NXT, I'm going to have to now. Because I want to, first of all, I want to see that receipt. Because that shot was brutal.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely want to watch more NXT. I need more hours in the day. It's kind of my problem right now.
Right.
But since we're leaving this off on a toxic attraction, I will say just one little bit of side news. So Renee has a podcast.
Right.
Andy Sachs was on the podcast this last episode.
When? Today?
I listened to it today. I think it was from yesterday.
Okay.
But I did listen to it today. She didn't say she's going to AEW. Right. I know it's kind of the initial like, oh my god.
No,
however,
I'm just like, she had the interview. I'm curious.
Everyone that has shown up on hers though
has shown up in AEW.
And she did.
They're not already under contract.
Yeah. Which did kind of mention to play off a little bit of like, hey, maybe we can get you back in contact with Saraya. Or maybe Dustin. Because they had the Mix Max challenge with the Gold Dust and Mandy Rose thing.
That's right.
But it's like, yeah, there's a few people over there that I have some
with them doing this Saraya Tony Storm against Britt, Rebel, Jamie.
Perfect. Be perfect. Because
Ruby's playing a little more of the homegrown talent role than she is the outsider role, which honestly makes more sense. Because I loved Ruby in WWE, but she fits in so much better in AEW.
Well, not only that, but I think just with her character itself, I think she's not playing more the homegrown. She's playing it as in, like, you all deserve your respect. You fought and you built this company.
Yeah. So
where Saraya and Tony are doing the opposite.
Bringing Mandy over, Saraya and Tony's third. That crowd response.
Well, so the crowd response would be amazing.
Yeah.
The story itself would make perfect sense. Because first of all, when Mandy was called up the first time with Paige.
Oh, that's right. Absolution.
Yeah.
It was Paige and Mandy and Sonia.
Yeah. So
Oh,
it
shit.
makes perfect sense for them to end up back together. She has built herself outside of the company. So her having the attitude of, I've already paid my dues, I deserve my spot, makes perfect sense. And over there, I'm sure she could have a little bit more of an open reign to talk about what she wants. She goes, look, I don't even need wrestling. I'm a millionaire on my own.
In a month.
Yeah. Which she did verify that, by the way.
Did she?
Verify, like, yeah. She was saying that her and her fiance, like, they were looking at the app. She's like, at some point, I felt like, no pun intended, that was this toxic? Because like I'm staring at this thing like it's the stock market. Because it's just constant like build. But yeah, it's apparently like they were just flabbergasted that
Oh, I'm
within
not.
that month.
I am not at all. And this is probably a whole nother segment, and it may even be a getting heat. But the way that the women are sexualized so much, and honestly, I feel like it's much more I will say I feel like it's less since Vince is gone. I feel like there's less sexualizing them. Yes, they're pretty women. They wear skin, but the outfits they're wearing are no skimpier than what the men are wearing. They just have different assets to cover and are covered differently.
Now, I will say in her interview though, she talked about that a little bit, and she said like that Renee had asked her like, so were you nervous doing the stuff that you're doing on your fan time site? Is that something you got nervous about, or were you trepidatious about? And she said no, because like honestly, when I first started it, I was just a little bit more risque than what I was doing on TV, because I was God's greatest gift. I was, I came out in a towel at one point.
Greatest creation. Oh.
She was like, and she made it a point of saying like, and I agreed to do all of that. Like I had no issue doing any of it. And so like, I just want to make sure that like I put out there, like my thought on the sexualization is if they're okay with it and they want to do it, you use it.
I agree. If they're like, and I feel like now a lot of them would have much more reign and comfort of saying, I'm not okay with that than they would have had before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because Hunter values women's wrestling. He sees and he understands the value in women's wrestling.
Well, and I think
girls can go.
Yeah, I think the best way I can say it is in today's wrestling scene, you're not going to see women on all fours barking and kissing someone's ass. I think that's
that's fair. Not in the same way. Now, if there's something like they have two women and they have a bet of some kind or something, it's a little different. But I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean it's just again, it's like one of those things. Like you think back to watching the Attitude Era, and yeah, there's a nostalgic feeling about it and how great it was. But I was also like a young teenager.
There's so much of that, and I honestly, I have not gone back and watched the Attitude Era since I came out. I'm not sure I want to.
Yeah, it's tough. I have went back and tried to watch some episodes.
There's so, and I remember the time even going some of that going, ooh, no, that's not okay.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. It's like I can remember like at the time I was thinking like I was already thinking too much about the business, because like so as I'm sitting here watching Trish Stratus on all fours barking and kissing Vince McMahon's ass, in my head I'm thinking, yeah, but she did that thing with The Rock backstage. The Rock's gonna get his comeuppance on this. It's gonna happen. And so like to me it was like, all right, it's a means to an end. And that's how I was justifying it in my head of, but we're doing this to get to that. So, okay.
Right, but now you watch it and you're like, oh no,
Yeah, we could have got
no,
there
no,
entirely different. Why did we do
no,
this?
no. I just, like I said, I have not journeyed down that road, and I'm not 100% sure that I want to.
Yeah, I've thought about, so like we've done the one review
Mhm.
show of past stuff, and I've thought
Right.
about like, hey, what if we just grab a random Raw episode or a random Nitro episode, and even just looking through it, I'm like, yeah, but we're gonna have to pick. Like, we're gonna have to be very selective about what we pick
That
because
or
some of
if
that is, ooh,
that or if we do it, we just say, well, this is a segment that happened. We're not going to discuss it because how hideously inappropriate it is today.
maybe we put the little thing up front like they put on old Disney movies. It's just like this was a product of its time.
Yes,
We will
because it
not be
was.
editing it, but understand this is not used today.
I it very much was a and we've talked about this. I just there's so much stuff that I just look back and go, oh God, that is so. As dumb as the word is, that is so cringe.
Well, and like it one specific one it reminds me of. I don't remember which podcast I was Listening to, it was either Road Dog or it was Eric Bischoff. So I'm not sure which, but they were talking about the segment or the storyline, excuse me, where it was Candace, Tori, and Tori's dad Al, and at some point Candace was trying to get a three-way with both of them, and it's like I'm sure listening to it, I'm like, holy shit, that actually really did happen, didn't it?
It
Oh
wasn't
God,
Candace. It was Dawn Marie.
Anne Marie, that's who it was. It wasn't
It was
Candace. You're
Dawn
right.
Marie. No, I remember that storyline going. It was. It's just there's so many things that I remember from that era that I'm just like, whew, that was
And
not.
it's and some of it's hard to look at too because then you had the whole sexual chocolate thing, and where China got a friend for him. And it's like, that wouldn't play today.
No.
Ooh.
Well, I mean, the power bombing Mae Young wouldn't play today.
Oh, but she was a tough old broad.
That right? She
She
had a
wanted them
hand.
to do that.
She had a hand. But
I remember specifically there was an interview with Bubba, and he was talking about that because they asked like, what did she think of that? Like, what did she?
oh no,
He's
she
like,
wanted it.
she told me I better not take it easy. Like, I better put her through that table.
He I know he said at one point she was like, "Don't be a bitch." She basically told him, "Don't be a bitch about it. If you're gonna go, go."
Like,
And
Jesus Christ, 80-year-old woman's just like,
May and
fuck
Mula
me up. I
both,
don't care.
May and Mula both, like those were some tough ass women. But it still is stuff that today you're just like, oh no, like we
Well,
can't
and
know.
and the Moolah thing in itself, like, I don't know if you saw the behind the scenes about the Dark Side of the Ring about Moolah. Um,
I've heard.
so like even all of that, like I understand horrible situation should have never happened, but Moolah had to do what she had to do back then because women weren't
Yeah,
respected in the business.
yeah.
So product of the time, she had to do it, and it
I
sucks
just,
for everybody
I
as they got
definitely
screwed by it.
I definitely think it's one of those. If we decided to do a an old show, we're gonna need some kind of disclaimer on it because, oh, and
Like
there's
we
stuff that
joke
was,
all the time about the views of the show. Like I would literally have to write out one of those. All
you
right.
know, you would 100% have to put that placard up at the beginning, probably about halfway through, show it again, and again at the end.
Yeah.
There's just so much that, and there's stuff that was hilarious to me. The whole thing with Triple H and the DX getting girls to just whip their boobs out was hysterical at the time. It's not appropriate at all, bro. It's not. I love a good pair of boobs. It is what it is. I'm not gonna act like I don't. But in that situation and that location, no, that it wasn't okay. And the girls were willing, but I'm just talking about the general audience.
Well, yeah, I mean, you had the people around them. You had kids there. You had families there. You had, it's a whole thing. Definitely a thought for another time. Us maybe do something like that. I do agree with you. Like, it's gonna have to be long disclaimer of like
and
what
I'm
is
sure
not
there's gonna be
okay.
stuff. There's gonna be stuff that I'm gonna be like, I'm not touching this. I'm not. No. I'm not going anywhere
No.
near that.
Much like when there's a bad match and I just go, and that match happened. That's pretty much. And then there was a Vince segment, and we're just gonna move on.
We're just gonna move on.
It was I don't know. There was old man balls and a bare ass involved, and that's all we're gonna say about it.
Said old man balls.
It's old man grapefruits. I don't know. But anyway, all right. We are. I don't even know how long because of how much I got to cut out of this.
Right.
We're pretty far in. I am sorry that we're having this truncated episode, but just felt like going into detail, talking the next 3 hours about a couple of shows that, for the most part, were really just wrapped around one major thing in the show. Just there wasn't a lot of detail we could go in about those.
I feel
with
like
us being this late on the recording, it didn't make sense to do different episodes.
And I feel like until we get past Chamber, the only storyline that matters right now is the Bloodline. I know we only have Friday, Monday, and Friday, but it's Kevin Owens will come back at some point. Sammy will show up on his own at some point. Like, it's the Bloodline is the storyline.
Yeah. Well, and especially now that they've encompassed Cody into it. Like at this point now, Bloodline's all that matters, and what happens with that between now and WrestleMania. Hopefully, we'll get some more stories that are remotely as good.
They're gonna have a hard time topping this.
Yeah, at this point, at the end of WrestleMania, we are going to be spent over one match.
Yeah.
So
Especially if they
that
make
better
that a
be
triple
main event
threat.
night 2.
If they make that a triple threat, Cody, Sammy, Roman. Here's the thing, and we talked about this earlier when my mic messed up. Cody pins Sammy and takes the titles, but Roman still hasn't lost. He doesn't have the title anymore, but he still has not been pinned in almost 4 years. And he can come out and be like,
Xavier was the last one.
You didn't beat me. You took my titles, but you didn't beat me.
So, and here's another thing I've been kind of playing around in my head. Cody wins the titles, but Cody's always about like helping the next guy, giving shine to the younger talent. I could see him giving up one of the belts.
I can too.
Just him saying like, look, I'm going to stick here on Raw, and I'm going to keep this WWE title with me. That's the title I wanted. That's the title that I wanted my dad to have. Here's the Universal title. Take it to SmackDown. Go get yourself.
I was getting ready to say that, or he goes to SmackDown and relinquishes the title. He goes to SmackDown and he hands the title to Sammy. And then Roman has to beat Sammy to get his title back.
So, not that I'm against that. I am against him having the title after he gives it to him. So he hands him the title. He says, "Look, you deserve this. I'm going to go to Raw. You hold the reins here." Then either Adam Pearce or Paul Heyman comes out, goes, "That can't fly. I can't have you just hand him the title. However, mark it down on your calendars. This next PLE that happens, Roman Reigns against Sami Zayn.
Winner takes the title. And Sammy is Roman's first loss. Especially if you're pulling the Usos away, Jay costs Roman the title. And then we start Roman Jay, and that feud's going to be incredible. There's so many ways this could go.
Yeah,
But I
'cause
agree.
I was even
100%
just
think
thinking if the plans that we've been hinted at are going to happen, we still end up with Kevin Owens and Sammy versus the Usos, and then Kevin and Sammy win the tag titles. Jay quits the bloodline at that point. Jay costs Roman the title later in the night. Then we end up with Jay Roman for the title. Jay's his first loss.
and I'm okay with them putting the title on Jay.
Yeah.
Main event Jey Uso, he worked his ass off to the Thunderdome.
Yeah.
So
Well, and not only that, but just the acting chops that this man has now, because like he broke my heart at Royal Rumble. Just
that shit was
looking at him,
brutal.
because he looked like a kid who just got beat with a belt.
He looked like a kid that just found out Santa Claus wasn't real. I
don't know. He looked kind of like a kid who just found out that Santa Claus is his dad because he saw him mom.
That took a dark turn. Like
Traumatized in a corner, just like, oh god.
He's in. Anyway, I'm gonna stop right there.
Okay.
Let's wrap this up.
Yeah, let's go and wrap this up. Thanks you guys for spending your time with us. If you're enjoying our podcast, please support us. Share this episode. Share our channel with others. Hit us up on all the socials down below. Down below us is our personal socials. If you want to just reach out to us, ask questions, anything, reach out to us. Hit us up on our TikTok, which is flying off the shelves. We got a whole whopping 23 followers at this point. But the views are insane. Just not many people are hitting the follow. So if you are someone who's been watching our TikToks, make sure to hit the follow button. Not just watch us and move on. Like we're okay if you're a creep, but be a creep that we know you're there at least.
Because the sooner your boys are making money off of this, the sooner we can cover more stuff for you.
That's right. If you want to see the latest from us and the greatest from us, you can get all of our back catalog right here, youtube.com @KickingAttitude. Till next time, I'm Michael. This is Tori, and we will see you on the next one, hopefully sooner than we have been lately. All right. Bye.